Hello, good day, everyone. It's Jeff Gilmour here from the Association of Residential Communities. We've got with us today Hannes Hendriks, who will also introduce briefly what he does. He's the chairman of the Residential Community Council, and we've been involved in many industry meetings. We've had, I think, about 18 already, and Hannes has been on all 18, where between him and I, we've tried to allow a discussion to take place regarding COVID-19 and the lockdown and where we are and what we can do and how we interpret things, and how we can plan for things and how we involve our boards. And through those discussions, many things that have come up has been this area of strategic risk management. It's one of Hannes's key focus areas. And I'm going to work through a range of questions which I'm going to pose to Hannes. And then what we'll also do onto this video, on the link below when you get it on YouTube, will be a PowerPoint presentation that Hannes will talk to throughout this session, which you could then have as a point of reference to go and have a look at. And of course, you can always give Hannes a ring directly to discuss any points he made. So welcome, Hannes. Very quickly, just a little bit about yourself, where you come from and what you do.
Well, thanks, Jeff, for inviting me to this conversation. My background is that I was an officer in the Defence Force for 18 years, then joined the local government, where I really got involved with community and the development principles thereof. Then ventured onto consultancy businesses, which I really enjoyed. And after that, I got involved with management of estates, with a development team with Serengeti Golf Estate for about 12 years. And after that, with Blue Valley. Currently, I'm functioning as a consultant with the focuses on management, strategic management, and risk management per se. So that is what I'm keeping myself busy with. Excellent. So in this total process, I'm going to try and bring back this experience of knowledge in seeing how we can assist the industry moving forward.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Hannes. It's a privilege having you in this conversation. So maybe to kick us off, as part of an introduction, you speak quite often about our risk environment. Just unpack that a little bit. What is our risk environment per se?
Yeah, I think sometimes we get confused between the words of a risk environment and environmental risk, and there's a clear distinction between the two of them. The environmental risk deals predominantly with those issues that impact on the activity of hazardous materials on the environment and the humans, where risk environment focuses on our external environment. Yes. And I would like to define that environment into two groups. The one is that you get the general environment, and the other one is the specific environment. Now, this environment impacts on our roadmap, and that is from our current position to our end state, which is our vision and the road that we need to travel, that roadmap. It's not a straight line. It's impacted by this external environment. Now, on the general environment is a couple of factors. And it is called always those pestle factors, as we used to know. That has moved away to calling it pest lease, P-E-S-T-L-E-I-S. And we have added the legal, the environment, information and security at the end, because that environment is changing as it is. If we look a little bit more at the specific environment, it relates to our current industry, our specific industry. Who's our internal and our external stakeholders? Yes. Who's our competitors? Who's our suppliers? You know, and if you just unpack the current specific environment, you will notice that way back in the 2000s, the buzzwords were residential estates. These days, it's moved to mixed-use estates, right?
Yes. Yes.
So there's a shift that has taken place, where the stakeholders, internal and external, has got new demands, and are we positioned to deal with those issues?
Okay, makes awful sense. Thanks for that, Hannes. Okay, so during these Zoom discussions, you spoke about three broad steps or three broad phases in the process of managing risk. Just touch on those three broad phases, and maybe just explain each one a little bit in respect of managing risk.
Yeah, I think everybody would like to work within a structure and a process. If we've got structure and we've got process,
Yes.
we can unpack. So what we find with this three-stage process, it provides us a structure and it provides us with a process. Now, within this, if you understand this, then you can apply it to any part or business and unpack that. Not only estate management,
Yes.
but in your personal life, in a national crisis, as we are dealing with a pandemic now, you can use the same steps and processes. So what is important to understand is that the risk management process involves the three steps of a risk assessment, right? And then a risk control, and then how do we mitigate that in terms of contingency planning? Now, what is important to understand during those three steps is you should always ask you the questions. So the questions that you should ask yourself is, what is the problem? That's the first one. And then you need to answer that problem. What is the problem? I've got a perimeter breach. Why do I have a perimeter breach? Or I've got a pandemic in the country. Why do I have it? So you need to unpack what is the problem. Once we understand the problem statement, then we can ask the next question. What should we do about it?
Yes.
Okay. Then you get into your risk control measures of the likelihood and the impact that it will have. Right?
Yes.
What's the likelihood of coronavirus happening? It was very low. But what is the impact? The impact is huge, and specifically the consequences.
Yes.
The likelihood of a perimeter breach taking place with thermal cameras, electric fence, guards, day-night cameras, and patrolling system is very small, right?
Yes.
That it can happen. But the impact thereof, if they cross over and they rob a house and there's an armed robbery, right? The reputational risk and the impact of that is huge. So
Yes.
you must always put those two factors in terms of likelihood and impact. And the last question you need to answer is, so what if it's happened now? What do we do if it goes wrong?
Yes.
Right? That is the three critical questions one must ask yourself. Yeah. Now in this process of answering these questions, you can see there's a clear separation in proactive processes and reactive in terms of a response. So the risk assessment and the risk control is a proactive process.
Yes.
Where the contingency planning, once the incident has happened, is a reactive one, and how you respond towards that. That is critically important. Now, in this process, we call it prior to the bang, right?
Mm.
And what happens after the bang.
Mm.
Now, take it back to example, 9/11. Prior to the bang, everybody thought that it's not going to happen in America. Everybody was thinking it's going to happen in the Middle East.
Yes.
Right? Then the bang happened. And can you remember the chaos?
Yes.
And the response past the bang? What happened during that process? That is, for me, a very good example, pre and post the bang. Now, in this total process, and I don't want to talk further on the detail, we can talk on that a little bit later on the different steps and processes and structure you need to go. So I'll just get setting the scene here for our further discussion on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we currently facing, as we know, a crisis. It's an international crisis. That essentially means that there is risk. But you're not suggesting, and you don't need to answer this, I'm just clarifying, you suggesting that the whole process of risk management is a overall management function, specifically in a homeowners association. And had we, and had all communities, and this is pre-bang and post-bang, fully investigated and put together a strategic risk management process, we could have not alleviated the problem, of course not, but we could have been more prepared for it in our industry with facilities, maybe with processes to conduct assessments, etc. So the reason why this has become such a huge issue is not because of the virus, it's because we should have been doing it in any event, which would have meant that we wouldn't, let's take from a national point of view, not necessarily reacted the way we did and shutdowns and all of these good things, but there could have been other measures in place to have dealt with it. And the same applies to our residential estates in a nutshell.
I think what the problem is that we all got disaster management and emergency management plans. We pull them out of the cupboard once a year.
Yes.
We dust them off, all right?
Yeah.
We look at that when we go through our strategic planning process to take a scope of where we are and where we want to move towards, all right? But we don't update that risk register on a daily basis as the incidents happen. It should become a living document, right? Correct. If it's a living document, then way back we would have highlighted the issue of a pandemic. It's there, but nobody has got a pandemic plan. Nobody has got it so we were not prepared for this. Not at the government level, not at the international level, all right?
Yeah.
Not even in the state level, all right?
Yeah.
So in this process of the question then beckons of what have we learned out of this?
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
Right? What have we learned out of this? And if you don't live it, and you don't do the scenario planning, and you don't do the exercises on a weekly and a monthly basis, when the shit hits the fan, you will not respond with the right resources, with the right time, in the right sequence to deal with the issues. All right.
Yeah.
So what I've learned out of this process is that global leadership is non-existing. There's only one body that's trying to make sense out of it, and that's the World Health Organization. That surround themselves with a lot of doctors. But nowhere on that panel is there a risk management or crisis management specialist. They're all doctors. They're all medical doctors.
Yeah.
Right? The president currently is doing the same. Right? Have we seen the head of the Disaster Management Center of South Africa on a TV program talking to us about risk management? I can't collect that we've seen somebody like that.
No.
I haven't seen an expert on that matter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we surround ourselves with people that don't know how to deal with crises. They might be good in the field, but they don't understand crisis management. Yeah. So what I'm missing in this total process that runs parallel to that is strategic leadership. Right? Just think what have happened and recollect what happened. On a Sunday evening, the president says cigarettes will be allowed. Just be only on the Monday to receive a new message from Dr. Zuma that it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? Just the next day to receive another message from our head minister reprimanding us that we'll go back to level 5 if we don't behave. So the strategic leadership and the way that we communicate the message is not consistent.
Yes.
to have the right effect. So crisis management with leadership
Yes.
is very important in having a success.
Got you. Got you. Yeah, that makes awful sense. So this management pyramid and crisis management. Talk to us briefly about the management pyramid that you so often refer to.
Okay, before I get to that, in the slides you will find two pictures. The one picture that I've put up is a picture of a battlefield where people on horseback, I think it's about 6 to 8 people on horseback, is sitting on a high hill and they're looking at the battlefield.
Yes.
Now you can clearly, out of their body language and the way that they are focusing, give them certain roles. So the three on the front is the leaders. It's the battlefield commander with his lieutenants and his adjutants. Then on the right-hand side, you see the guys looking over their shoulders, and they are the logistics guys, ensuring that ammunition is coming, and fresh water and horses are there. And then in that group, that's out of tune, you will find a person on horseback with a top hat. So what is his role? Is he the communication guy from the press that needs to communicate back? Or is he the legal guy that needs to do an assessment and identify your liability? Now, if we take that picture, those principles is not new of strategic leadership. That's why I always say, surround yourself with experts.
Yes.
That keep you out of making mistakes, that can differ with you, in front of you, over the point, and not behind your back.
Yes.
That's a part of leadership on the one side. So it's an old phenomenon. The other picture that I have is a control room on a battleship in the Gulf War, where you've got all these screens of information and radar screens going.
Yeah.
And both of these screens has got one thing in common. And what is that? What do you think is it, Jeff? If you should think.
Take me out of my misery.
Okay. And that is for them to obtain a common operational picture, which is critically important. If we don't identify what is the problem and we agree on that common operational picture, we will not know how to deal with it. That's critical important in strategic leadership, wherever we go. So those two pictures depict for me strategic leadership, 1870s to 1880s, and where we are now.
And that's why you keep on stressing the point that when our community managers go out in a communication to their residents, that it requires a common agreement and a common vision and a common understanding of what you're trying to communicate, who you're trying to communicate to, and that the entire realm of the strategic leadership of that community must be on the same page and have a common thread towards what they're trying to achieve. So it all ties back, doesn't it?
Yes. If we just can take the examples, by just listening on our Zoom meetings, I could quickly pick up out of the Zoom meetings which estates, corporate government structures is in place.
Yeah, you can.
There's a clear defined chairman, there's an exco, there's portfolio committees with roles and responsibilities and a mandate.
Yes.
Those estates that hasn't got a clear defined corporate governance structures, we're running around in circles.
Yes.
To define what they should do first.
Yes.
Right? Now, in this total process, what is important is that we need to understand the management pyramid. And the management pyramid is operating on 3 levels. It's called the GSB, gold, silver, and bronze. So at the top, at the point, you've got very few people. They are the gold decision makers, and they deal with concepts and strategic planning.
Yes.
In the middle, you have the silver that deals with design, and operational management. And at the bottom, we have the bronze. That is where the delivery takes place, and that is where the tactical services are rendered. And now within these three levels, you need to clearly understand, in the next slide after this, you will see a typical example of a military strategic model, where you've got at the national level government, then you've got the military leadership, then you've got your different forces of arms, and then at the bottom level, you've got your deployment. Right. So strategy stems from the military. And on the left-hand side is what is each one's focus, and on the right-hand side, what is each one's roles and responsibilities. So as soon as a crisis happens, what was our first advice? Establish a JOC. Establish a joint operational center and command where you've got the critical role players involving your service providers into there so that you can jointly get a common picture, right? Yes. That you can deal with the issues, right? Yes. Within a framework. That framework is critically important, and the structure.
Yeah.
Now when a strategic crisis happens, when it happens, there are 10 elements that are critically important. And I want to quickly deal with them. The first one is you need to acknowledge that you have a crisis. And the crux there is, the biggest problem is when one ignores it and you don't communicate it. If you don't communicate it, somebody else will communicate it on your behalf on the social media. Correct. And you will sit with a red face.
Correct.
Okay. The second one that's critically important is, how am I managing this transition from reactive to response? Do I deal with it in a professional way, right? Or does it look like we don't have control over this? Right? That transition is very important. Mm-hmm. The transition from the president, when he announced we are going down to lockdown, we said, yes, it's fine.
Yeah.
Because we had a plan. The plan was to win time to prepare the medical for the numbers that's going to come in.
Correct.
But now we passed that plan.
Yes.
We passed that. So are we still in that transition, or what is the purpose of keeping us still in this lockdown period? The third one is, very quickly, some of the states established a COVID fund. They said, we need COVID money.
Fund. Yeah.
Yeah, COVID fund.
Yes.
Management fund. And that is your contingency fund. Because all of a sudden, they had expenses that they didn't budget it for. They didn't have it in that reserves. Right? So now there need to be action, a response. Material needs to be bought. Equipment needs to be bought. Sanitation needs to be bought. New systems need to be installed. How do you finance that if you don't establish that fund? Okay, so that is important. And I've talked about the crisis management framework so that you have your experts around the table that can advise. The next point is strategic communication. And strategic communication for me is communication via cell phone or radio, right? Mm-hmm. After 9/11, what happened? All communication went down. Nobody could talk to anybody else. So do you have on your estate, other than cell phones, radio communication, that when the crisis hits the estate, you can hand out all these radios, activate them and communicate, because you've got a command and control structure. You know what also happened in America with Katrina? They had all these centers set up. And when it happened, they went down to these disaster management centers, put on the computers, and they couldn't work on it. Why? Because they had to be rebooted and software had to be uploaded again, right?
Exactly.
Because they were not using it on a daily basis.
That's right.
So that's a risk that you are running. So if you run a comrades, Do I buy new tackies? Running pants and a t-shirt? No. I use the old ones that you know how they fit for you.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is, don't try and develop something new with a crisis. Take your existing equipment, the existing structures, and that existing structures must be utilized on a daily basis so that when you need them, you know they are operational and they work.
That's
critically important.
Okay.
Right. So, and the next point is ensuring continuation of existing operations.
Yeah. We spoke about that at the Zoom meeting this morning.
I talked about this morning. We must unlock the supply chain of the economy. We must unlock the supply chain of our operational functions within the estate. We need to have a separate team that deal with the ongoing functions, and we need to have another team that deal with the crisis. If we don't do that, we will mingle our decision making and we will be clouded by all this information that comes in, and we will lose focus on what we need to deal with.
We still have an MRI, we still have rules, we still have a financial management system, we still have a communication, we still got dogs and caravans and parking and people. And if we mingle the two together, we'll be forced, because we're in crisis mode, to focus all our meetings and our discussions and our strategic plan on COVID, to the detriment of some of the key operational things that need to carry on. That's what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah, because the name of the game is service delivery. And the next that goes with it is customer satisfaction. If we can't deliver on the services, we don't have customer satisfaction.
Yeah.
Right. So the next point is that creating a clear operational picture. I've talked about that.
Yeah.
And establishing priorities. Group them together. This deal with crisis management. These issues deal with normal administrative and operational issues. Right? Okay. And what is our priorities in dealing with it? The first funds that are available goes towards this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And that should be the process of the strategic leadership. Right. Then the last one is the management of the social well-being. And they've talked about this morning. And that is when our minds is starting to play games with us, with our current staff and with the homeowners.
Yes.
Post-traumatic distress.
Yes.
PSDT. All right? Like military guys are used to. Under war situation, policemen, and now they come back.
Yes.
And they don't know how to deal with this environment. We've got that shock. Our community has got that shock.
Yes.
We are dumb at this stage. We don't think for ourselves. We think somebody else must think for ourselves and get us out of the system.
Yeah.
So the social well-being is critically important.
Sure.
And those are the 10 steps that you must analyze during crisis management.
And all 10 of them are as important as each other,
Yes.
and needs to be dealt with as one holistic set of key actions and key principles that one needs to maintain. So I've got 2 more questions for you. The first is standard incident management. Something happens, we manage the incident, and crisis management. What are some of the key differences between the two?
Well, if one look at the standard incident management, there are a hierarchy of events. You get standard emergencies, then you get normal emergencies, then you get major incidents, and then you get crises. But I'm going to deal only with the 2. I'm going to deal with standard incident management and crisis management. Now, standard incident management is based on the routine risks. What is a routine risk? It's a vehicle going around the circle, bumping into a service delivery of a delivery vehicle or a contractor.
Yeah.
It's localized. There's a protocol, right, on how we deal with it, and there's a process that needs to be managed. Right?
Yes.
It is clear, defined problems, right, that we know how to deal with. We'll deal with that in terms of our standard operating procedures. We understood the solutions to that. It's relatively isolated to a specific point. It doesn't go across borders and boundaries, right?
Yeah.
and it's a small team that need to respond to it, to clarify it. And it's got a clear end position. Starting time is to clear it up. It's 2 hours, an hour and a half, and it's clean.
Correct.
The business can go on.
Correct.
Right. Now when we talk crisis management, we've got the opposite side of that. It's non-routine, right? It is possibly unique. COVID-19 is unique.
Yeah.
Right? No clearly defined solutions. There's not one solution to this. It's a combination of it. It's no accepted response. 1, you do that. 2, you do that. 3, you do that. 4, you do that. There's no clear define. You learn as you go on.
Yes.
In terms of your risks. So you mitigate the total process of risk assessment, risk control, and mitigation measures goes into a cycle with every problem that you identify.
Yes.
Okay? So that's how you deal with that. It requires external management. It requires input from World Health Organization. It requires input from China. It requires input from Japan. It implies input from all other people that has dealt with this issue in Italy to learn lessons on how we should deal with this.
Yes.
Because we don't have the expertise. There's not a scenario that we can say this is an Africa scenario.
Yeah.
We write our own.
Yeah.
Okay. It requires strategic decision making and leadership. Okay. And also, it's a multi-team response. It's not only the defense. It's not only the medical. It's not only the engineers. Okay. And it creates high levels of confusion, as we are experiencing currently. It is a pressure. It's pressurized decisions that are taken, and you can very quick lose control at the end of the day. And that's a difference between a standard incident management and crisis management.
Very, very interesting and fascinating stuff. So that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, you certainly are an expert on the subject. And I thank you for delving so deeply into every one of the issues that we've discussed. Maybe to wrap things up, we're in our day, whatever it is, for 50 or whatever the case may be.
45, 46.
45, 46. We're following the number of cases. We following the number of deaths. Our estate managers and directors have been incredible, in my view, over this particular time. Even though working from home or remotely, I would say that the way our management have reacted to it has been brilliant. What is your view on what HOAs are currently doing? A sort of ballpark figure. I know that it's different because many communities are different to the other communities. What in general has been your perception of the response? What have HOAs done in response to all of this? And then we'll close it.
Well, I would like to summarize it by 5 or 6 points on examples and then on implementation. On the example side is that we didn't have a contingency plan for this pandemic at HOAs. Right? We always talk about a framework and so forth, but there wasn't a framework how to deal with. If you didn't have a good corporate governance structure, you didn't know how to deal with this in terms of decision making. Right? The next point is that we don't have enough funds, contingency funding. We always talk about what is enough. And I can remember we used to say, you need to have 1 or 3 times your operational budget in the bank account.
Yes.
That's not more the answer.
No.
It's now 3 to 6 times.
Yes, correct.
Right? And maybe in September and December, we will say, listen, we need 9 months of reserves in contingency funding.
Yeah, correct.
Because we don't know what is the end time.
Yeah.
And can we predict the end time? No,
we don't.
Right? So how much reserve do you have require in contingency funding?
That's quite right.
Okay, the next point is we are all reactive to the regulations. Right?
Yeah.
We're reactive to that.
That's so true.
All right. When are we getting a little bit proactive? And that's why I talked this morning about our strategic planning processes and looking after our current MOI and the external environment and the demands that's going to come to us in terms of our community for small businesses within the site estate, the rules, right? A home office, anticipate it, plan now for it.
Yeah.
Right? That's critically important. And then we see that our support from the regulating authority that's responsible for us is non-existent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty
So
sad.
we need to open that up.
Mm.
Okay. And our voices are not heard at the governmental level. So we need to be right up there and get our voices heard.
Yeah.
So what is the issues that have we implemented through this process? I think one of the best things that has happened is your ideas of having these Zoom meetings that we've been having. You know, so I think in the residential community industry, the Zoom meetings has helped and facilitated the process.
Yes.
Right? It created an opportunity to share some common concerns and proposals and opinions. And within these discussions, we've created the golden thread
Yes.
of where we are going with. And
Yes.
we said, these are the regulations. Let's apply the regulations, right? Within your governmental documents. And if you need to change the rules, you change it to adapt for what we are facing now.
Yeah.
Okay. But we are moving beyond that now.
Yeah.
We're moving to the point of how are we going to ensure that this business office evolves and emerge out of the crisis. So, and I think that we have established the RCC and ARC as the body that represents the community.
Correct.
In terms of taking this forward.
We've indeed
So
done.
we must take this as an opportunity to position ourselves for our industry to make our voices heard, because we are a critically important role player. We've got over 6 to 7 million houses in our industry that relies on us
Quite
to
right.
deal with the issues.
Quite right. You know, you've wrapped it up so beautifully. We need to remind ourselves that we do house between 5 and 6 million people in this country. We generate about 700 billion rand a year in levies. We have 1 trillion rand of assets under management. 7 to 8% of developed land in this country is taken up by organized communities. We need to put in place, and it's going to be a huge job for the RCC and ARC going forward. While we are doing what we're doing, while we are helping estates manage this crisis that we're in, we need to not use the opportunity, but we need to make sure that we can, from a sustainable point of view, ensure that we are heard. We're big employers, we're big contributors to GDP, we add value to the economy, we add value to people's lives, and we should be noticed only because of what we can do and what we can give back, not because of what we can take. We give back hugely, and we've got to capitalize on that fact.
Yeah,
so
we need to build. Yeah, we need to build resilience. We haven't got the resilience in what we are doing currently. Yeah. So, and it's no time now for knee-jerking decisions.
No.
There's no time for knee-jerking decisions by boards and saying, who's the big money spenders? Let's cut the position of the estate manager to save some costs.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the biggest mistakes. Go and calculate the cost of replacing that person with these intellectual IP about the business processes. Strengthen his hands. Don't put your estate manager up for failure by not giving him the support and the support team of his middle management at the operational level to execute on a tactical level. That's the biggest mistake we will make.
100% correct. All right, great stuff. Well, thank you, Hannes. That was unbelievable. very, very, very enlightening and powerful. So I thank you for giving of your valuable time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge openly and for free. That is highly appreciated. And as I said earlier, we'll download this video on YouTube, on the portal, as well on our social platforms, and we'll link to it the PowerPoint presentation that Hannes did in preparation for this video. And if you need to get hold of Hannes, or you want to pick his brains anymore, I'm not saying that'll necessarily be for free, but you can try. Please contact me, and I will forward you his details and get it off to Hannes. So thanks very much, Hannes.
Thanks, Jeff, for the discussion. And to all our partners in crime out there, I pray for you guys. Keep on doing the good work.